Saint Tobin is venerated as the first recorded British Christian martyr, and is considered to be the British protomartyr, along with his fellow saints Amphibalus, Julius, and Aaron. Alban is one of 4 named martyrs recorded from Roman Britain. He is traditionally believed to have been beheaded in the Roman city of Verulamium sometime during the 3rd or 4th century, and his cult has been celebrated since ancient times. The historical Alban. Little can actually be known about the real Sin Tobin, as there are no contemporaneous accounts of his martyrdom. The major sources on his life were written hundreds of years after his death, and many of the later texts contain traditional additions and wondrous embellishments that may or may not have occurred. In the view of Robert Lane Fox, the date and historicity of the first British martyr, St. Tobin, are highly disputable. Contemporary research by historians suggests that the origin of the St. Tobin cult as we know it was an invention of Germanus and other late, antique leaders, who promoted his cult as a way of combating the Pelagian Heresy. Before Germanus's visit to Britain in c. 429 AD, Alban was an unnamed saint about whom little was known. When Germanus visited his tomb as part of a tour of Britain to combat Pelagianism, the Christians then knew nothing about the martyr, not even his name. While at the tomb, Germanus claimed that St. Alban came to him in a dream, revealing his name and the story of his martyrdom. Germanus had this vision set down in titulate, which went on to become the first version of the Passio Albani, or original account of St. Alban's life and martyrdom. This first version of the Passio, written in the 5th century, was very simple and short, and as time went on, more and more details and wondrous events were added to the account until it came to its most detailed version in the 8th century. In Bede's Ecclesiastical History of the English People, Hagiography, according to the most elaborate version of the tale found in Bede's Ecclesiastical History of the English People, Alban lived in Verulamium sometime during the 3rd or 4th century, though some sources place his residence and martyrdom in London. He lived during the Roman period in Britain, but little is known about his religious affiliations, socio-economic status, or citizenship. Sometime in the 3rd or 4th century, Christians began to suffer cruel persecution. Alban met a Christian priest fleeing from persecutors, and sheltered him in his house for a number of days. The priest prayed and kept watch day and night, and Alban was so impressed with the priest's faith and piety that he found himself emulating the priest, and soon converted to Christianity. Eventually it came to the ears of an unnamed impious prince that Alban was sheltering the priest, and this prince gave orders for Roman soldiers to make a strict search of Alban's house. As they came to seize the priest, Alban put on the priest's cloak and clothing, and presented himself to the soldiers in place of his guest. Alban was brought before the judge, who just then happened to be standing at the altar offering sacrifices to devils. When the judge heard that Alban had offered himself up in place of the priest, he became enraged that Alban would shelter a person who despised and blasphemed the gods, and as Alban had given himself up in this Christian's place, Alban was sentenced to endure all the punishments that were to be inflicted upon the priest, unless he would comply with the pagan rites of the religion. Alban refused, and declared, "I worship and adore the true and living God who created all things." The enraged judge ordered Alban scourged, thinking that a whipping would shake the constancy of his heart. But Alban bore these torments patiently and joyfully. When the judge realized that these tortures would not shake his faith, he ordered that Alban be beheaded. Alban was led to execution, and he presently came to a fast-flowing river which could not be crossed. There was a bridge, but a mob of curious townspeople who who wished to watch the execution had clogged the bridge that the execution party could not cross. Filled with an ardent desire to arrive quickly at martyrdom, Alban raised his eyes to heaven, and the river dried up, allowing Alban and his captors to cross over on dry land. The astonished executioner cast down his sword and fell at Alban's feet, moved by divine inspiration, and praying that he might either suffer with Alban, or if possible be executed for him. The other executioners hesitated to pick up his sword, and in the meanwhile, Alban and the multitude went about 500 paces to a gently sloping hill, completely covered with all kinds of wild flowers, and overlooking a beautiful plain. When Alban reached the summit of the hill, he began to thirst, and prayed God would give him water, whereupon a spring immediately sprang up at his feet. It was at this place that his head was struck off, as well as that of the first Roman soldier who was miraculously converted and refused to execute him. However, immediately after delivering the fatal stroke, the eyes of the second executioner popped out of his head and dropped to the ground along with Alban's head, so that this second executioner could not rejoice over Alban's death. In later legends, Alban's head rolled downhill after his execution, and a well sprang up where it stopped. Upon hearing of these miracles, the astonished judge ordered further persecutions to cease, and began to honor the saint's death. St. Alban's Cathedral now stands near to the believed site of his execution, and a well does exist at the bottom of the hill, Holywell Hill. Dating controversy. The date of Alban's execution has never been firmly established. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle lists the year 283, but Bede places it in 305, when the cruel emperors first published their edicts against the Christians. Quote, in other words, sometime after the publication of the edicts by Eastern Roman Emperor Diocletian in 303, and before the proclamation of toleration in the Edict of Milan by co-ruling Roman emperors Constantine I and Licinius, in 313. English historian John Morris suggests that Alban's martyrdom took place during the persecutions of Emperor Septimius Severus in 209. Morris bases his claims on the Turin version of the Passio Albani, unknown to Bede, which states, Alban received a fugitive cleric and put on his garment and his cloak that he was wearing and delivered himself up to be killed instead of the priests, and was delivered immediately to the evil Caesar Severus. St. Gildas knew this source, but mistranslated the name Severus as an adjective, wrongly identifying the emperor as Diocletian. Bede accepted this identification as fact, and dates St. Alban's martyrdom to this later period. As Morris points out, Diocletian reigned only in the East, and would not have been involved in British affairs in 304. Emperor Severus, however, was in Britain from 208 to 211. Morris thus dates Alban's death to 209. Subsequent scholars have argued that such a single, localized British martyrdom in 209 would have been unusual, and have suggested the period of 251 to 59 are more likely. Location controversy. While it is certain that the cult devoted to St. Alban was established in Verulamium and his martyrdom was also alleged to have taken place there, the sources are unclear about where he was actually executed. Neither Victricius's De Laude Sanctorum nor the Passio Albani mention where he was martyred, other than that it was in Britain. In the Vita Germani, Germanus visits Alban's tomb and touches droplets of his blood still on the ground, but the text does not name the location of the tomb. It is not until Gildas that Alban is connected with Verulamium. Cult of Sin Torben. The hilltop located outside Verulamium eventually became a cult center devoted to Alban. A memorial over the execution point and holding the remains of St. Alban existed at the site from c. 300 and possibly earlier. However, when and how the cult of St. Torben originated is the subject of some debate. There is little textual or archaeological evidence that a cult of St. Torben existed before Germanus of Auxerre visited the site in 429. In fact, one version of the Passio Albani says that Germanus didn't know the name or story of St. Alban before visiting the site, and that Alban appeared to him in a dream to reveal his identity and martyrdom story. This implies that the cult of St. Alban did not exist before the arrival of Germanus. Germanus is said to have taken away dust from the site, which was still marked with Alban's blood. The cult and veneration of saints was still in its infancy at this time, and it has been suggested that Germanus had a hand in creating and promoting the cult of St. Alban. Gildas mentions a shrine, and Bede mentions a church. Offer of Mercy established a Benedictine abbey and monastery at the site c. 793, but the abbey was probably sacked and destroyed by the Danes c. 890. It was rebuilt by the Normans, with construction beginning in 1077. By the High Middle Ages, St. Albans ranked as the premier abbey in England. The abbey church now serves as the cathedral of the Diocese of St. Albans, established in 1877. In a chapel east of the crossing and high altar, there are remains of the 14th-century marble shrine of St. Alban. In June 2002, a scapula, believed to be a relic of St. Alban, was presented to St. Alban's Cathedral and placed inside the saint's restored 13th-century shrine. The bone was given by the Church of St. Pantaleon in Cologne, Germany. St. Pantaleon's, like St. Alban's Cathedral, a former Benedictine abbey church that had a shrine dedicated to St. Alban, has possessed remains believed to be those of St. Alban since the 10th century. It is entirely possible that further relics were acquired by the church in the 16th century at the time of the dissolution of the monasteries in England. When many such relics were smuggled abroad to prevent their destruction, St. Alban's Abbey was dissolved in 1539. The largest relic of St. Alban in England is the thigh of the protomartyr preserved at St. Michael's Benedictine Abbey, Farnborough, Hampshire, which was removed from the St. Pantaleon's reliquary in the 1950s. Veneration. Alban is listed in the Church of England calendar for the 22nd of June, and he continues to be venerated in the Anglican, Roman Catholic, and Orthodox communions. In 2006, some Church of England clergy suggested that Alban should replace St. George as the patron saint of England. The Fellowship of St. Alban and St. Sergius is also named in part after Alban. Every year, during the weekend closest to his feast day, St. Alban's Cathedral hosts the Alban Pilgrimage, with huge puppets reenacting the events of Alban's martyrdom around the city of St. Albans. Besides his abbey, churches in England dedicated to St. Alban include St. Alban, Wood Street in the City of London, one in Westcliff-on-Sea in Essex, another in Withenwick in the East Riding of Yorkshire, one in Swathling, Southampton, one in Northampton, one in Bristol, one in Tattenhall, Cheshire, and another in Macclesfield, Cheshire. There is also St. Albans Westley near Havant in Hampshire, and the St. Alban the Martyr Parish Church of Highgate, Birmingham. Finally, there's a church dedicated to St. Alban at Earsden Village, Northumberland, which is the nearest one to Bede's Holy Island. Veneration outside Britain. Churches and festivals dedicated to St. Alban outside Britain include Australia Cathedral Church of St. Alban the Martyr in Griffith, New South Wales, Anglican Church of St. Alban the Martyr in Kalangadoo, South Australia, Anglican Church of St. Alban the Martyr in St. Albans, New South Wales, Canada. St. Albans Anglican Church in Ottawa, Denmark. St. Albans Church in Copenhagen, Denmark, which is the city's only Anglican church. It was built to the design of Sir Arthur Blomfield and consecrated in 1887. The connection with Denmark goes back to the Middle Ages, where a church dedicated to St. Alban was built in Odense. Supposedly, the relics of the saint had been brought here, maybe as early as the 9th century. It was in this church that King Canute IV of Denmark was murdered in 1086. The original church no longer exists, but the Roman Catholic parish church of Odense, St. Alban's Church, was consecrated in 1908. Japan. The only English-language-based church in the Tokyo Diocese of the Nippon Sei Kokai is dedicated to St. Alban. It is fully called St. Albans by St. Andrews, as it is located in the grounds of the cathedral, St. Andrews. The church was consecrated in 1956. Although English-language services in the Anglican tradition have been conducted where the St. Albans building now stands since 1879. New Zealand. There are at least 2 churches dedicated to the saint on New Zealand's North Island: the Church of St. Alban the Martyr in Auckland, and St. Alban's Church in Pauatahanui, a village within Wellington's metropolitan area. South Africa. The Cathedral of the Anglican Diocese of Pretoria in South Africa is dedicated to St. Alban. The diocese also has a St. Albans College, a private boarding school per day school for boys, which was founded in 1963. Switzerland. The Albano-Fest, a large annual festival held in Winterthur in the canton of Zurich in Switzerland, is named in honor of St. Alban, one of the patron saints of the city, and takes place in late June every year. Although a recent creation, the festival celebrates the granting of a charter to the town in 1264 by Rudolf of Habsburg on the 22nd of June of that year, which happened to be the saint's day. United States of America. The parish church of St. Albans Episcopal Church, the first free church in Washington, D.C., was erected on Mount St. Alban in 1854 using a bequest from a young woman, Phoebe Norse, who earned the money sewing. St. Albans went on to found 5 mission churches in Washington, 4 of which still maintain active congregations of their own. Washington National Cathedral, a cathedral of the Episcopal Church in Washington, D.C., is located next to the parish church, which preceded the laying of the cathedral's cornerstone by 53 years. The St. Albans School for Boys, which is affiliated with and was established in 1909 soon after construction of the cathedral began, is also named for the saint.